Okay, this is the first video for drawing the skull for drawing day number 2. As you can see or may have seen in the slideshow, I have put a green box around one of the images of this skull. And so I'm going to do that real quick on my paper. So I'm going to essentially draw a rectangle around the edge of my paper, and this will kind of give me a space where I will need to draw the top, bottom, and sides of the skull. And so as you're drawing this, make sure you're using sketching lines. So this way you can go through and either erase or simply change what you're working with. So after I've drawn this box, I am going to split the paper in two. So just as close as you can. And this line is going to help mark where certain areas of the skull are, specifically underneath the eye sockets. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start by drawing the dome of the skull, or the top of the skull. And so you will just do this with a curved line. And we have a couple different parts to look at when we're looking at the skull. So the part that is going to come to this edge line will be the eyebrow portion of the skull. So that will be approximately right here. And so this is the only part that will come out this far to this line. So the edge of the top of the skull will not come to this line, just the eyebrow piece. Now, another part we're going to look at is the kind of base of the skull that's over here. So this is actually underneath that center line that we sketched out. So just sketch this really fast. Then I'll finish the rest of the skull where it curves. So we're going to come back this way and we're going to finish out the eye. So what happens is this curves in just a little bit. And then the cheekbone is underneath this line. So that will be approximately here. And then what happens, this part leads into the palate area of the mouth. And that sticks out just a little bit. And I've found it's easier to kind of stop right here, and then we'll move back over this way to finish out the rest of the bottom of the jaw. So what happens is this kind of curves up a little bit, and then this back area of the jawbone or mandible curves just a little. And then that will form the lower area of the jaw. And then for the chin, it will angle up just slightly. And then we will come through and make the rest of the mouth area. So this has a little curve right here, then a little larger curve, and we'll come back through and put the teeth in. So we're going to look at where the eye sockets will be. So the bottom of the eye socket is actually going to fall along this middle line that we originally sketched. And so we'll start right here. So we have this curve of the eyebrow. So I'm going to follow along this line just a little. And then we're going to curve this up. And because of this middle line, I know where the bottom of the eye socket will be. It'll just be kind of a slight curve right here. And we do have the nose that cuts in right here, and it's really going to line up with kind of this edge that we had curved in. So that'll tell me where the nose will be, or the part of the nose that sticks out the furthest. And so I'm not drawing the black area of the nose, I'm simply drawing the entire opening, which includes kind of the edge of that bone. So the nose is at an angle, so just make sure that you recognize that as you're drawing. And the lower portion of the nose will make its way to about here. So it's a little bit kind of in the middle of this curve, which really I'm going to make this a little longer. And so also, if you look at the picture, the bottom part of the nose actually comes further down than the base of the skull. So if I just sketch this line, that'll tell me that the nose needs to come down a little bit further than that. And then this is where we'll get the angle that I was talking about. So it'll do something like this. Now we'll work on the other eye. There is kind of this like curve or crease in the bone that you can see. And what is also going to happen, so I have this right eye. I'm just going to sketch a line that's parallel to this one. And this will tell me how tall the left eye will need to be. So the left eye, the bone kind of blends into this area, so it may be a little difficult to see where it starts and stops. But if you kind of start and stop it along where this stops, it's kind of a good placement. Now, for the width of this eye, approximately it will be about the same width as here to about where we started. So in that case, if you need to find a measurement like that, I have this measurement that I'm making with my hand. I'm going to carry it over. So this eye is probably going to stop about here or so. And this will curve down. And then this part of the eye will have a little bit of an angle to it. So just remember that as you're drawing it. All right, so the eye is in place. So we're going to draw the area where the temple will be. So the first line that I'm going to draw, it's going to be about here where the curve starts to go up. And this is going to be pretty close to the eye, so there's not going to be too much space right here. And this area of the temple is going to basically be on the same line as the eye. And kind of make this weird shape like that. So all you're drawing for this portion is this weird kind of squiggly line. So that forms the temple part. So next thing we're going to include is where the cheekbone forms in this area. And so what happens is we have our jaw area here, and I'm actually going to reshape that because I'm not real happy with how that looks. So so this jawline, it actually goes up a little bit past this center line. So that was my error in forgetting to mention that and do that. Okay, so now for the cheekbone, this is going to start about here, and then it's going to drop down basically on the same line as this nose, or the bottom of the nose. And then it'll kind of form this type of shape. So I made it go over just a little too far. And then it's just going to kind of curve up like that. And then where we have this part of the cheek that sticks down, if we draw down, so it's going to kind of like line up with the edge of the eye. This is where we'll have the opening to the mouth. So this part is where the top part of the palate is that will hold the teeth. And we'll finish this part back up once we start putting the teeth in. So we have this upper palate area, and then we'll put the teeth underneath. So what happens with the teeth, the top row of teeth are bigger or taller than the bottom. So if I make, so this is going to mark kind of where the bottom of the teeth would be. And I'm going to bring this up just a little bit. Okay, so with the teeth, the secret for the teeth, again, is to make sure the top ones are taller. And you're going to have 10. So with the teeth lines, make sure that the lines are curved. So they do overlap just a little bit. You're going to start to see some almost like triangular type shapes. And that's going to be the gaps between the teeth where the gums would normally be. So right now I have 5 of the teeth in. So I have 5 more to put this way. So this tooth is fairly large. It's going to stick down just a little bit. So just 2 more left. So these are these back molars. So there are my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 teeth. And we'll then put in the teeth on the bottom part of the mouth. So this back tooth, it overhangs the bottom one. And because these teeth are smaller, they're still going to be curved, but there is kind of like a little bit of a curve at the bottom of these teeth, because we can see where they are going to fit into the sockets. So not only do they look shorter, but they are a little more narrow. All right. So one thing I'm kind of noticing, I'm going to bring the jaw down just a little bit. So not too much. I just want to kind of put this back in the proportion. There we go. And I'm going to want to finish this part, and this is the opening. And really, I probably made this a little too narrow, so I'm going to bring that over a little bit. Okay, so now I have the jaw finished. I have the teeth finished. I'm going to make some lines for the upper part of the palate. And so where these lines happen to fall, they're kind of in between the teeth. And we will make these lines with paint once we start that part. And then we do have these at the bottom. So these are angled just a bit. And they're a little bit shorter. Last few things I'm going to want to put in, there's kind of this hole inside the eye socket. And so that's where everything in terms of the eye will connect to the brain. And so where this is, it's going to fall about here. So I'm going to put a curve line in, and then there's just a very organic kind of jagged type shape that is going to be right there. All right. So that's just the basics of the sculpt to get you started on the drawing. Just double checking everything, make sure I didn't forget any pieces. I'm going to add in the rest of this. And there's another little piece of bone right here that we'll want to put in. And looks like I have everything in. There's a little piece of the nose, or what is called the septum, that kind of sticks out. We'll just do this by making that kind of curved line. And then that will lead into the septum part. So the next video, we will cover the color and applying the colored pencil.